Today's date is April 17th, 2026. This is Luciana Spracher representing the City of Savannah's Municipal Archives. I'm interviewing Sydney Alberg, who goes by CJ Giovanni, for the Savannah Community Memory Project. We are conducting this interview at the Carnegie Library Heritage Center in Savannah, Georgia. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by having you tell us your full name and spell it for us.
So my name is Sydney Josephine Alberg. That's CYDNEY-JOSEPHINEAHLBERG.
Okay. And what pronouns do you use?
She, they.
And when and where were you born?
I was born right here in Savannah, Georgia, September 29th, 1994.
Okay. Who raised you? Can you tell us a little bit about them?
So my mother, Rosa Murphy, and my father, Stephen Alberg, both raised me. My mother's from Claxton, Georgia, and my father is from Connecticut. So I have a little bit of taste of both, north and south. Most of my roots are southern. My mother is the youngest of 6. My father also has about 4 or 5 siblings as well. And I am the youngest of 2, so it's me, myself, and my brother.
Okay, great. Where did you live when you were growing up?
So starting off, I grew up on Ogeechee Road till I was 5, and then we moved to the south side, and I spent the rest of my life on the south side, where I still am.
Any particular neighborhood on the south side?
We hopped all over the south side, to be honest.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
So, I grew up on the south side, like I said, with my brother and then a younger cousin of mine. My aunt and my cousins stayed over there, so we played around in that neighborhood all the time off of Largo, Tibet. So I had grown to know that neighborhood, the Windsor Forest area. I went to Windsor Forest Elementary School. I was supposed to go to Windsor Forest High, but someone brought to my attention in middle school that there was a school called Savannah Arts Academy. So I auditioned to participate in what was then the communications department. So I ended up going to Savannah Arts Academy. Jumped a little bit ahead, but between going to Windsor Forest and Savannah Arts, I went to Durin Middle School, which I guess they would call the new Durin because they had the new building when they switched over. I think my brother was the first class of the new building.
So let's talk a little bit about Savannah Arts. Were there particular teachers or mentors or programs that you really enjoyed being at Savannah Arts?
Yeah, so I started off I was in the communications department, and I started off just basically doing broadcasting and film. So I started learning film. I thought I was gonna go on to be a video producer. I enjoyed writing the scripts. I enjoyed doing all the behind the scenes work. But then I think around my sophomore, junior year, they brought in Mr. Taylor, who started teaching graphic design. And I instantly fell in love with graphic design. So I started honing my craft in that. But at the same time, I was taking honors classes, and I had Dr. Lacey. And in that class, we did a lot of writing projects. In this one particular writing project, we had to create an entire portfolio of poetry. And I love that so much that I just continued to write from then. Like, I've always been a poet, but that is when I really started taking it serious. Like, hey, I could actually probably do this as something. And it maintained a hobby all through high school and college. But when I came out of college, before college, I was going to all the open mics here because we had a very intense open mic scene here. We used to go to the Muse Warehouse, which is no longer around. We used to go to Taco Bajo. There were several places that we used to go around here. They had organizations like AWOL and Spitfire. I never was an official member of these organizations, but I was always aware of them. So they would all take me under their wing and let me sit and watch. And I ended up gaining a mentor out of, his name was Marquise. And so he started showing me the ropes. I ended up taking a slam competition class from him. And then there was a competition at the end of the class, and I came in second place. And that was really a catalyst of me continuing to perform. So once things started taking off, I started participating in the open mics, and then people started saying, hey, we love your work. We want to book you for shows. And I was like, okay. So I just continued to move forward and keep going after that. And then it's been one thing after another. So now I'm performing at city events that really mean a lot. And I want to continue to do stuff like that because we have important stories to tell here.
Okay. So you mentioned going to college. Where did you go to college?
I went to SCAD. I did 1 quarter of SCAD in Savannah. And then I dropped out for a year. And then I went to Atlanta and stayed there for about 3 or 4 years.
But SCAD in Atlanta?
Yes.
What did you study at SCAD?
Graphic design. I got my BFA in graphic design and I got a minor in photography.
Sorry, I'm taking
No.
notes. So you, that was actually my next question is, did you move away from Savannah, and then come back? So, sometimes when we leave and then, we don't come back. What brought you back to Savannah after school?
It's a very sad reason why I had to come back because originally my plan was to stay in Atlanta because I had started doing photography in the music industry, which was very fun. I ended up, I had an internship with a band, and then they had connections to an entertainment company, and they would, in exchange for me taking pictures, allow me to go to concerts for free. So I got to witness a lot of like cool artists like Sheila E. I got to shoot her, and a lot of different music areas there. But towards the middle of my senior year, I got a call from a cousin I was super close to, one of my cousins who used to live here in Savannah. And she had been teaching overseas in Abu Dhabi. Well, come to find out, she got cancer. She got pancreatic cancer. And she was gonna have to come home for treatments and everything. And we were so close, we were more like sisters. So I had to come home. I didn't really make any plan to stay in Atlanta after that. And I came home and spent the rest of her life with her while I was home. I still wrote and everything. We still did art together because that was how we connected. She actually taught me how to color in the lines when I was a kid, which was so funny because when she taught me how to outline and color inside the lines, I started winning all of the coloring contests. All of them. Like my favorite one that I've ever won was like the old Piggly Wiggly on the south side. They had it was a mountain bike, like a BMX type bike, and I wanted it so bad. I don't even know why because I didn't really ride bikes like that, but I did my best coloring and she was like, that is so good. And so I ended up winning this bike and that me and my cousin shared. So that was a great memory. But yeah, I had to move back for family and to make sure I got to spend that time with her.
Well, sounds like she was an inspiration and
huge inspiration.
What was her name?
Her name was LaToya. She was probably one of my biggest supporters, one of my biggest fans. Don't tell my brother; they might argue about it. My brother is also one of my biggest supporters, one of my biggest fans. Like, without the two of them, I probably wouldn't have gone as far as I have gone. They constantly would reassure me that I'm doing the right thing and support my art and come out to my open mics. And like my brother lives in North Carolina now. He still drives to come and support me in my shows and in all of my endeavors. And I know like if Toya was still here, she'd be at everything that I was having.
What's your brother's name?
His name is Joshua.
So,
but I call him Bubba.
Bubba. Let's talk a little bit about your creative career, because you've already mentioned a lot of different things you got your hands in. When someone asks you what you do or what you are, how do you answer that question?
First, I say everything. I say, yeah, I do a little everything, and then I start rattling off I'm a graphic designer. But so if I were to like categorize things, by career, I'm a graphic designer and photographer and illustrator. By passion, I'm a poet, spoken word artist, and storyteller. And if to sum them both up, I'm a visual storyteller and a spoken word artist.
Wow. Okay, that answers my next question. Let's talk a little bit about your pseudonym CJ Giovanni. When did you start using it? Why? And what does that represent to you?
I don't remember when I started using it. I think when I got my first gig in I think 2021, 2022 maybe. But the reason I did it is to one, honor my name, and then honor my biggest inspiration in poetry, which is Nikki Giovanni, who we sadly lost recently. So when I was a little kid, I was watching the show A Different World, and it was one particular episode, and they did this poem, and it was called Ego Tripping, and they acted it out and everything, and I was just like, this is fascinating. Like, I love this. Who is this poet who wrote this? And then they mentioned her name in the show, and then I went and I started researching her more. And then later on, like, I want to say it was 2014, like right when I was dropping out of college, she came to Savannah State, and my aunt was like, you want to go see a poet? And I was like, yeah, who? And she was like, Nikki Giovanni. I was like, yeah, of course. So we got to go and hear her speak, and she did Ego Tripping while I was there. And then at the end, we got to take pictures with her and everything, and it was just the most amazing thing. And then several years later, after LaToya passed away, I was working at a job, and I got a message like from, I think my aunt the same aunt texted me, which was LaToya's mother. She texted me and was like, Nikki's gonna be in Charleston for the book festival. You should come. And I was like, well, I gotta work. And I was like, you know what? That's not important right now. My family's important, and seeing Nikki again is important. So I told them, hey, I'm not coming into work. And I went. This was my first time driving to Charleston by myself. So I drove to Charleston, and no ticket or anything for this event, because for some reason we just didn't end up getting the tickets. But we got there, and they were like, oh, y'all are good. So we got in, and I got to meet and speak with her once again. That will be our final time meeting. But meeting my hero twice meant a lot. So I guess that kind of factored into me adopting her name, so I can like extend her legacy through my work. And then I wanted to make sure I kept the C and the J to honor my given name, Sydney, which my parents gave me based off the movie House Party. And I think it was my aunt who decided the spelling to spell it with a C. And then my middle name, Josephine, actually comes from my grandmother on my mother's side. She passed away way before I was born, but I feel like super close to her all the time. Like, she's probably another huge inspiration of mine. I write about her a lot. I actually wrote a poem, like, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, about the azaleas in Savannah, because you know we have a lot of beautiful azaleas, and come to find out those were one of her favorites. And I text my mom one day this picture. I was like, you know, I never really noticed like how beautiful the azaleas are. She was like, those were your grandmother's favorite. I was like, oh, okay. And so I went to write a poem about that. So that's one of my favorite poems that I've probably written. So yeah, I honor them with my first name, middle name, and then Giovanni. And then I make sure that it's lowercase, because I studied a lot of bell hooks, and one thing she made sure to do was lowercase her name as well in her work, just to keep the focus on the work that you're doing and not yourself. And I really found that to be very profound. Like, it's not about me, it is my name, it is my stage persona, it is my written persona, but the work that I'm doing and these works that I'm writing is way more important than like centering myself. Yes, I'm paying homage to these people and to my ancestry and my legacy through this name, but I also want to make sure that we pay homage through the work as well.
So you've mentioned one major or several inspirations. People have inspired you, but you know, are there other additional people inspire your work, or maybe I should say, what inspires your work?
Who? So those two, I could ramble on forever. Some of the key figures that inspire my work, so it's Nikki, and then it's Sonia Sanchez, which she's known as the mother of the haiku. She taught me a lot about peace and keeping things simplified, but still impactful. Her overall thematic question of her work is, what does it mean to be human? And I ponder on that a lot when I write and do my work, and when I'm in community with people. Like, what does it truly mean to be human? I study the Black arts movement a lot. That is probably one of my favorite time periods. If you ask any of my friends, they probably know that 1965 is one of my favorite years, because of the rich like cultural history in that moment. There was a lot going on politically, and then they decided, hey, art is just as important as all of the things that are going on, and it's honestly our duty to just preserve these stories and tell these truths through our artistry. So I study a lot of the Black arts movement in conjunction with the Black Panther Party and the liberation movements, and the Black aesthetics movements as it comes to like visual arts as well. Some of the other people who influenced me, my mother influences me a lot. Actually, we were just working on, well, I was workshopping some poetry with her last night. She writes as well. She doesn't like to share, but I'm trying to convince her to go to an open mic or two. But my mother writes. She was telling me that my grandfather used to write. My grandmother did a little bit of writing as well. She was more of like a seamstress and she was a nurse, but she was artistically inclined as well. And then on my father's side, my father doesn't necessarily write, but he's a pretty good visual artist. He's done like pastel works and whatnot. Even though he went to the military, he still like honed his craft in artistry as well. He enjoys photography just like I do. My brother writes and he draws as well. He's done a bit of sculpture. Like everyone in my family is pretty much artistically inclined, down to my aunts and my cousins and everyone. Latoya, she used to write a lot. Like I said, she taught me how to color inside the lines and draw. We were always doing some kind of craft project. With her being a teacher, she would let me help her decorate her classroom and everything. So that's a lot of influence on the family end. And then I have a great support system of friends in the area and outside of the area. When I was in college, I had two different friend groups, but both were equally influential in my experience in college and in who I am as an artist. We would hang out and do our coursework together, but also we would pursue our passions and like doing other work and things that we enjoyed doing. Sometimes I would take them with me to concerts so they could like just see the area that I'm in, like, and experience the entire vibe of like the music scene. One college group, I still keep in touch with them. We still critique each other's work just like we're in college. We still encourage each other. We refer each other for different jobs, and we're all still creating and moving in that creative space. And my group here is mostly writers, women writers to be specific. I started a women's writer group. It started off as we were calling ourselves the Black Women in Femmes Creative Writing Collective. And then recently I decided to simplify the name and we call ourselves Giovanni's Garden. And it's not just based off, my name, but the legacy of Nikki Giovanni. And that group is actually inspired by a group she was a part of called the Winter Green Women, and another group that had Toni Morrison, I think June Jordan, and a few other Black women called the Sisterhood. So I wanted to bring that kind of legacy to Savannah and that kind of creative space to Savannah. Like, hey, this is a sisterhood where we can all thrive in our creative crafts. Like we all have different points of views and different stories to tell and different means to do it. So we can work together and bring all of our ideas together. And then we can also go out into the community and do things like we've done a poetry in a park event and we're getting ready to do it again. So, and we often like, they work in different city jobs. One works for Deeb, one works for the city, and we pull each other into our jobs and like, hey, I get to teach workshops with my friends. I get to help assist them with anything they have to do for their jobs. So it's genuinely a sisterhood and a friendship in which we center our crafts, but we also center our relationships and how we grow.
Nice. That kind of leads me right into my next question you've already started answering, and it's to talk about the creative community in Savannah. So, you've touched on kind of the community you're building. Can you speak a little bit about the community, the larger community that you have found to exist or maybe lacking?
Yeah, so like I said, back in the day, we had such a large poetic community. Clinton Powell, rest in peace, was a pivotal figure in the poetry scene around here. I never got to connect with him personally, but just seeing the fruits of his labor and everything he invested in the city through other people was just inspiring and made me want to write even more. And then there was so many groups going on back then, like everyone had a space, and we kind of have that now a little bit, but it's not as big as it used to be. I really wish it was as big as it used to be, but people move away, people pass away, things change, the city changes, new infrastructure, new buildings, um, and then like yeah, things just change. But now we still do have a space. I mean, for the youth, we have Deep. Deep does an amazing job on my friend Jasmine. She's working with the young poets over there, and I get to step in and help when I can. So that's an amazing thing they have going on over there. Spitfire is somewhat prevalent still, like they're still around. Every now and then I'll see something from them. And then, like I said, my group, we try to do what we can. We're slowly building. It's like 6 of us now, but we do what we can.
Can you put some names too? So Jasmine's at Deep. Who's active at Spitfire?
Right now I think it's Jive English who's over at Spitfire. I connect with him a lot. And then Soul Quest, who was around a lot when I was in the scene as well. I'm trying to think. Spitfire wise, I think those are the only 2 that I can remember right now. And then, like I said, Jazz. But I also connect with a lot of our elders around here too, like Sister Pat Gunn, and Miss Lillian Grant Baptiste. The 2 of those women are probably like right now my biggest mentors. I've learned a lot from them. I've studied a lot from them, and they always give me a platform and uplift my name when I'm around, which I greatly appreciate because I've been looking up to these women for like forever. When I did my when I was chosen to do a TED Talk, the first person I called was Miss Lillian. I call her Ma from time to time. I was like, Ma, I need some help. I'm getting ready to do TEDx. I need some advice. And then she talked me through the whole thing. She even prayed with me. And then the day of my TED Talk, she showed up. She brought me a gift. She often writes me notes and cards of affirmation, which I greatly appreciate. It's amazing. And then just about every time she has an event at Plant Riverside, she calls on me so I can perform alongside her. And she's always speaking positively of my name, and I'm always going to do the same for her. And then recently I was speaking with Sister Pat Gunn. We were at Whitfield because they were talking about the new findings which they confirmed that it was a Negro burial ground. And I went to support her in the ceremony they had there, and they poured libations, and I got an opportunity to speak a little bit, and she was just like, this is an amazing poet, you guys just make sure you keep up with her. And I was very honored and humbled to be able to be there and get that praise and hear her. And then we spoke briefly after. She was just like, keep doing what you're doing. So I ended up writing a poem about Whitfield Square, which I still have to send to her. And yeah, it's just people like that and communities like that just influence me heavily to just keep going all the time. And even hanging with Jazz, she brought me on to do the Yamacraw project, in which I performed 2 original pieces that I already had based off of Savannah. And then from that event, I went on to go and write a new piece for Yamacraw, which I've since shared with some folks, and they appreciated it. And that's all I'm trying to do with my work, is tell both my story and the stories that need to be told around the city of Savannah, because it's my home. And when I was younger, I don't think I really realized how rich of a history we have here and how important it is to maintain that history as things progress, because we're slowly being pushed out, and things are being more gentrified, and things are being like just pushed out, and all of our like local residents are no longer being able to afford staying in our city. So it's important, like whole towns are disappearing. So it's literally just important to learn from our elders and tell these stories, record these moments, and say, hey, this existed, and we need to keep doing the work.
Well, we met at that Yamacraw
Yes.
Village event where you read those pieces, and the piece that caught my eye was the one that mentioned a Savannah man that was known as Piccolo. And I actually wanted you to talk about your feelings at that event, or you've talked a little bit about, obviously, that you left and wrote a new piece, but could you talk a little bit about your piece, about Piccolo, what inspired you to write that piece in the first place, and include him, because you mentioned to me when I said something about Piccolo, you know, why you even had his name in that piece.
Yeah. Okay, so the name of the piece is Down by the Riverside. I connected to, you know, Negro spiritual, Down by the Riverside. That's another thing. My friends and my peers like to say, hey, you're a singer. And I'm like, no, I'm not a singer. But I am a singer. So
I mean, that was a spoken and a sung piece.
Yeah, so I do incorporate a lot of music. That's an important thing with my writing as well, incorporating the music, because I'm driven by the beat, and like everything has a beat to it. So when I write to like a rhythm and a beat, and that piece in particular is driven by that Down by the Riverside beat. And I just wanted to actually in that piece just highlight the important like parts of the Savannah that I know from my perspective. So like I talk about the politics a little bit, about how that's a little tricky around here. I talk about the different legacies in the schools. I think the lines like them dolphins, dogs, and tigers keep coming, because we have SSU and Beach and Durin. Those are, if you go to those schools, those are legacy schools. Like people know, like your people went there. I talk a little bit about some of our like historic buildings that have been, or like restaurants and stuff like that have been here. And like you said, I mentioned Piccolo. When I was a kid, I used to see him on the news a lot. I was like, Mommy, who is this man? She was like, oh, that's Piccolo. I was like, do you know him? She was like, no, but the whole city knows him. I'm like, okay. And as I got older, I didn't really as a kid, I didn't know what that meant and how like important that was. But as I'm getting older, when you show up in community, you're a face, you're a presence, you're a persona, and like you become a part of the city. And I'm kind of feel like I'm doing that as well, because now I show up to open mics and people be like, oh yeah, that's CJ, oh yeah, that's little Giovanni, like they're dope. So to have that kind of extension of like, oh, I can create a Piccolo type legacy of my own, to just show up and be present and make my voice heard and people know me, it's pretty cool. Like I said, I never met Piccolo, but I saw him a lot. I had my own kind of Piccolo growing up. I don't know if many people know, but well, actually no, a lot of people in Savannah do know. On the south side, Mr. John, he wore these green shorts or green pants, it depends on the season. He had a bald head like Mr. Clean, and he wore a button-up shirt with no sleeves.
I know exactly.
And he would always smile and say, hey, my friend, and give me a hug. And he would tell anyone in the vicinity, this is my friend right here. And he'll always be like, I'm going home to eat me some sketty. And I'm like, okay, Mr. John. Well, I have a funny story. One time, my father and I had to go to Connecticut because his mother was about to pass away. We had to take the bus back from Connecticut to Savannah. We stopped in North Carolina, and guess who gets on the bus? Mr. John. And I was like, wow. He sees me, I see him, we lock eyes, and he was like, hey, friend. I'm like, hey, friend. He never knew my name. I don't even know where he is now. I hope he's somewhere doing well. But having people like that just in the city, I absolutely love that kind of thing, because that's what community is about. Showing up for people, being present for people, and just getting to know each other. And not even if you know like their full stories, but connecting with people.
Can you tell us a little bit about that Yamacraw piece you wrote after that event?
So the piece I wrote for Yamacraw, because like I said, we have to preserve those stories, and we have to make sure we tell the truths, because even though stories are being told, a lot of the truths are being hidden. I did the tour with Keyshawn Housey after the event, and I actually learned a lot more than I knew about Yamacraw. And that actually inspired the piece. The tour alone inspired the piece to highlight that they built this replica of a plantation in the middle of a black neighborhood, which the neighborhood itself was funded so it can be affordable housing for people to be here. And then they decided, hey, you know, it'd be cool if we replicated an entire plantation so these people remember basically where they come from, is essentially what I took from it. It was a humbling statement for me, and I'm just like, this is an important part of history that needs to be told, because these are acts of violence and aggression that have been and continue to happen in our history, in our own backyards, in our own cities. And then he spoke on the First Bryan Baptist Church over there, and I was learning about the history of that church and how the windows have these stained glass and tell the stories and everything. And the more I learned, I was like, yeah, I need to put this stuff in a poem because it's very important. And then across the street in the Yamacraw Square, which I learned used to be Yamacraw Arts. And the more I learned about that, I was like, oh, this is like a direct connection to me, because James Weldon Johnson wrote a poem in which he references Yamacraw Square, and I'm like, or Yamacraw Village, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, so now I have to reference him. So I ended up referencing him in the poem. I think the line goes, who's gonna tell James that he can't come home? Because all there are silent songs and dilapidated culture and vanished poems. So yeah, it's the when even in the smallest part of a city, there's so much to learn and so much history to learn, and that was my goal with that poem, is to put as much as I can into that poem, highlighting the history of it, the culture of it, how things transitioned, why they transitioned to what they are, and how we can fight against it, stick together, and make this story come out in a positive light, even if things don't work out in our favor. But we can preserve this story and be like, hey, even if they do erase this part of the land, the people were still here. There was still a history, a rich history, a story to be told, and a fight that was had.
You're using your words and poetry as preservation and
Right.
oral tradition.
Right.
So you've been writing and creating art for many years. It sounds like since you were a little one.
Basically since I was born.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite piece? If so, what inspired it and what does it represent?
I would say I have a signature piece. I have two signature pieces, but one piece in particular, like I said, it all started with Nikki Giovanni ego tripping. So one night, I don't even remember what time it is, because I create, but I don't have a set writing time. But when I create, it's usually like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just laying there like, okay, here's an idea. I need to get up and write this now.
Okay, so do you have a favorite piece, and if so, what inspired it or what does it represent?
Yeah, so like I said, it all started with Nikki Giovanni when I first saw Ego Trippin' on my television screen and heard that poem, and then getting to hear her do it live twice really inspired me. So I wrote this piece called Limited Edition, The Ego Still Trippin', after Nikki Giovanni. And basically it just journeys, it kind of mimics what she's doing with the Black woman, and how we're basically the center of the earth because we built all of this. So it kind of mimics that, and that I talk about from a first person point of view, like I am that I am. I'm everything like that I am because I built all of this. It's in different sections. It starts off like defining who I am, and then it talks about the character of who I am, what I've gone through, and then I make some biblical references, like I built Bezalel's tabernacle, wisdom, knowledge, skill, and all. Bezalel is one of my favorite biblical characters because in the Bible, he was like one of the first people to receive like the Holy Spirit, and he was an artist. He was instructed to build the tabernacle and be a creative. He was literally created to create. And so I saw a lot of myself in that biblical character. So I wanted to put that in the poem as well. And then throughout the rest of the poem, it just solidifies like, hey, I built all of this. I am all of this. I am everything and nothing. And then my legacy is going to continue whether you agree or not. And then I echo to Nikki at the end of that poem, and it says, when they ask me how I get so fly, tell them I am the reason why. And in her poem, she says there must be a reason why. So yeah, I echo a bit of her original poem into that poem. That's kind of become like my signature. I'm CJ Giovanni, this is who I am, and this is the poem that represents who I am and why I am.
For someone who's never been to Savannah, how would you describe Savannah for them?
Savannah has a duality to it. There's the tourist Savannah that you'll see coming right straight to the city. And then there's the real Savannah for the residents who live here. The true histories that aren't commercialized, that aren't watered down, that aren't hidden, that aren't profited off of. You can go on a ghost tour, or you can go on an underground ghost tour, a Gullah Geechee ghost tour. You can go and eat at a restaurant, or you can go and eat at a soul food restaurant and get some home cooking. You can go and see a show, a cute show in Savannah. Or you can come to an open mic event and come to an underground show. So it's a lot of duality in Savannah. It really just depends on what you're looking for when you come here. If you're coming here looking for tourist attractions and looking to just, relax and recline and everything, cool. Downtown's your area. Go explore downtown. But if you really want to know what's going on downtown, find the real travel guides, and they will tell you, find a Sister Pat, and she's going to tell you about those corridors on River Street. She's going to tell you all of the deep history that they don't tell in these other tours. So yeah.
What are your hopes for our community?
My hope is that we continue to grow, is that we continue to use our voices to advocate for equity, advocate for our arts, advocate for ourselves, and advocate for the community that has been here all along, and preserving, like I said, that true history. Push back against all the commercialized things that are trying to drive us out, all the gentrification. It's gonna happen regardless. We know this already. But to actually preserve what already exists and not fade to black in a sense, is what I really truly hope, that the youth continue to follow down the paths of, like I said, Lillian, Pat, and all of those elders who, Miss Pierce, Miss Julia Pierce, all of these elders who have continued to, Elder Ned, all of these elders who continue to tell our stories and who don't have a problem speaking to the youth and connecting with the youth so that we can do that kind of work. I just hope that even as people implant into the city, they realize, hey, there's a rich culture and a rich history. Even if you wanted to compare us to a New Orleans, we're just as proud, we're just as rich over here, and we have just as much of a story to tell over here as they do over there. So that's what I hope for Savannah.
Okay. What advice would you give to a young person or a new poet or creative trying to just get started now?
Go to an open mic. There are so many out here. Go to an open mic. If you're a young person, connect with Deep. Find Jasmine, find Brandy, find anybody over there. They will happily embrace you. Find a program that's going to support you. Even if you can't get into a program, find a group of friends, find a teacher. There's always a teacher somewhere who is going to be like, hey, I can help you and point you in the right direction. And if you can't find a teacher, find a library. Go to a library, find a book. There are people the library is one of the most important safe spaces and third spaces in a community, because it asks nothing of you other than to show up. Library cards are free. You can do so much with a library card. Like, you unlock an entire world with a library card. I would say that a library card is probably one of the most equitable things that we have in our society, because you can get a card, whether you're unhoused, whether like you come from out of town. There's still a way. They make a way for you to get a library card, so you have access to these buildings, to these features, to these programs, to all of the history in itself, and a library. So yeah, library, teacher, open mic, very great options.
Well, I'm glad we're doing this talk in a library today.
Oh, and one of the most important things too, if you're trying to be a spoken word artist, do it scared. Do it scared. Like, when I first started off, I watched for years. It took a little bit of like, probably a kick in the butt from a friend, like, hey, you should get on stage. And I finally got on stage, and the more and more I got on stage, like, the nerves are still there, but do it scared. It'll take you places, like, especially if you have a story to tell, because as a poet, as an artist, you're the only person who can control your narrative the way you want it to be controlled. Otherwise, someone's going to tell your story in a whole different light. So as a poet, we control the narratives, we control our stories, we control our history. We have way more power than people realize. Like, politically, when things go on, who do people look to? They look for orators, they look for poets, they look for speakers, they look for leaders like the MLKs, the Malcolm X's. Like, they were orators, they were storytellers, they were speakers, and they organized and uplifted their people, not just in action but in words, and people listened to them. So it's very important that learn the craft, and then control your narrative.
Nice. This is my final question for you. Anything else that you want to share with us today, either about your life, about Savannah, other people you want to lift up? The floor is yours.
I've done a lot of lifting today. Like I said, I'm very appreciative of my friend group that I have here. My girls, Jasmine, Crystal, Amber, Brandy. I don't want to leave anybody out. Danny. It's just like, the sisterhood is amazing. Like, when you find your pocket of community, and then you expand that into different communities because you all have different connections. That's how community thrives, and that's how community lives, and that's how we get to tell these stories. That's how we get to preserve like history and culture, and that's how we push back against, authorities that try to overrule us and try to oppress us and everything. It's community. Oh, and shout out to my friend Socks as well, who I'm also like in community with, and Ronnie and Cece. It's so many people. Like, it's a never-ending link, and I enjoy getting to step out into this city and see a face that, if I don't know them, I get to know them, and they know somebody that I know, and they know somebody that I know, and it's a never-ending chain of getting to know your neighbor and getting to build these connections and getting to share this passion and this artistry in this beautiful city.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your life and your journey and your work with us today.
Thank you.